This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
This episode brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks, largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. Also, we've been talking about this place for a while now, Greg's Home Comfort Company, Noturno Home Services. If you're looking for a team that puts your comfort first, visit noturnohome.com/Bedard for 10% off your next service. Could save you up to $1,000. All right, Greg, let's start with free agency. Earlier today, I just tweeted out a blurb from some notes you had, and boy, got a little bit viral. So that's good for you. I did attach your story, so I promoted your story. And
I wake up every day hoping to be viral by those troll Twitter accounts. Yeah,
come on, baby. So with that said, part of your story mentioned that the Patriots would be interested in Davante Adams and or Cooper Kupp if either or both got released. Well, right before we started to record this, we find out that Davante Adams has actually been released, which isn't a surprise, but he's been released. What I want to ask you is, we know that the Patriots would be interested. What kind of odds would we be looking at? Is this, slight chance, almost no chance? Where would you put it?
Well, I'm not really sure. I mean, I would say this. I mean, that I'm not sure how exactly I wrote it, but I would term it like the Patriots would have some interest in both players if they were released. They're not interested. The Patriots are not interested in giving up. First of all, they don't want to give up draft capital at all. They would rather not, because look, we all know what shape they're in. Like they need to build this for the long term. They're trying to do it short and long term at the same time, sort of like the Commanders did last year. But that being said, I mean, in the right circumstance, say like a T. Higgins, a Brandon Aiyuk, somebody young and ascending that they're going to get multiple years out of, that's when they would consider the draft compensation. As far as Adams, I mean, look, now he's in a situation where he can do whatever he wants to do. I think that the Patriots have some interest in him, but where does he fall in the pecking order for them? I'm not really sure. I mean, I know it's, as far as guys that they know to be available, it's definitely T. Higgins number 1. It's definitely Chris Godwin number 2. And then it gets sort of murky after that. Yeah. But you also have to keep in mind that what does Davante Adams want? Now, I will say, I think we've talked about this before. This stuff about McDaniels and Davante Adams, it's completely overblown. They had a very good relationship in Vegas. You could say whatever you want about his reaction about X, Y, and Z. First of all, Josh was the head coach at the time. Second of all, a lot of Davante Adams' frustrations there had to do with the quarterback position. Yes, including Derek Carr. I think that Davante was pretty ticked off, along with a bunch of other people, when McDaniels started Brian Hoyer instead of Aiden O'Connell in a game I think was at Chicago. That was sort of basically the beginning of the end for Josh there. But as far as his fit, understanding of the offense, it's awesome. I do think that they have a good relationship, and you got to remember Mike Vrabel is now the head coach and Josh is just the offensive coordinator. So, if you just focus in on Davante and Josh in an offense, it works. The other thing to remember is like Davante has his options now. So it's impossible to say. It's not just the Patriots' call. Davante can do anything he wants. Right. Does he want to go with Aaron Rodgers someplace? That's a factor. Does he want to go back to the West Coast, which is where he's from? That's also a factor. Maybe he only came to New York, to the Northeast, because of Aaron Rodgers. So there's a bunch of different factors. So it's really impossible for me to say like what the odds are. But I do think the timing is going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know if Davante is going to go anywhere soon. It's possible he does, but I think the Patriots certainly have higher priorities at this time because they don't really want to get older. They want to get younger and better, So what's the timing of all that? I don't know.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Again, Greg is writing about the Patriots' interest. This is not to defend Greg's reporting. Greg is a big boy, as we call him. He can defend his own reporting. But there were some people that I saw, and of course it's Twitter, so take it for its worth. But oh, well, why would Adams want to go there? Greg's not saying that Adams would want to come to New England. He's just simply saying that if Adams became available and was released, the Patriots would have some interest. He's a name that they look at and go, oh, he could make sense. So that's that. And I do wonder what'll be interesting is how Davante views this. Like you said, Greg, he can wait. He can wait out the market and say, all right, if T. Higgins stays in Cincinnati and Godwin stays in Tampa, now my services, once that's cleared up, they become paramount for a team like the Raiders. I mean, well, you could throw the Raiders in there, but forget about it. I meant the Chargers. The Steelers, we know, have really wanted a receiver. Like you said, Rodgers, if he goes to the Giants, does Davante say, hey, I could just stay where I'm at right now and go play alongside Aaron for one more year? It'll be interesting. And of course, the Higgins stuff, the Rams, another great option. So it'll be interesting to see how he approaches his free agency now, because as we know, Higgins could be tied to Cincy for another few months until July. So it's going to be compelling to watch how he goes after it. And by the way, Dan Orlovsky just tweeted what you just said. Wonder if he would go to the Rams as a Cooper Kupp replacement, talking about Davante. All right, let's get to another wide receiver. Seems like there's a little bit of heat surrounding Brandon Aiyuk. Now, I worked out in Sacramento for a year and a half. I know some people out there. I'm not saying as an insider. I'm talking about people who cover the team. And there's a little bit of a mix here. Grant Cohn, who's known as somewhat of a shit stirrer at times, has been pointing towards Aiyuk could be traded going off what John Lynch said at the Combine last week, which he was asked directly if they would trade Aiyuk or whatever, and he didn't really say we want Brandon. He didn't stand by the player. And there's, the fact that the Niners are selling or trying to sell 10% stake of their team. And it sounds like Jed York, who is the owner, is trying to buy into a European football club. So they might want to try to tighten the purse a little bit. And they're looking at Brock Purdy, trying to get a deal done with him. So all of that is background. There are people that believe Aiyuk could be available. There are people in San Francisco and the Bay Area saying it doesn't make any sense. He's not going to get dealt. Is Brandon Aiyuk, is he a reasonable option for the Patriots right now?
Yeah, I definitely think so because I do think the Niners have some interest in moving him. Look, I mean, how many months ago was it that the Patriots basically had a deal worked out with the Niners to trade for Aiyuk, and they had they had the highest offer as far as a contract for Aiyuk. Now, we know some things have changed in terms of, who's in charge with, Vrabel and Cowden and John Stryker and Elliot Wolf. I mean, we know that Elliot Wolf wanted to do that deal. Do those other guys? I mean, it wouldn't be, if you're the 49ers and you're putting Aiyuk on the block, isn't it your first call to the Patriots? Now, what complicates it is that Aiyuk's coming back from ACL and MCL surgery.
Right.
He was injured in week 7. Optimistic timeline would probably put him sometime near the beginning of the season to be ready to go and possibly play. We all know that ACL injuries, it's really the second year after that when you're back to your old self. I would think that the Patriots would want the 49ers to eat some of his contract, which he's due a roster bonus, a sizable, I think it's like $22 million coming up here a little later in the month. Would the Patriots want the 49ers to eat that and they'll take the rest of the contract? Would it be because of the injury? Would it be a conditional pick? That sort of thing. So I do think that the Patriots would have some interest in Aiyuk, but there's a lot of things that complicate it.
All right, so a few things. Interestingly enough, Aiyuk, as you said, he tore his ACL in week 7. If you look at Kendrick Bourne tore his ACL in week 8 of 2023. So if you want to have a similar trajectory, you've got a guy in Bourne that came back in early October from his ACL tear. So that could certainly be a time frame you could go off of. I wouldn't guarantee it because everybody's body reacts differently. But that's what you really be looking at. Somewhere likely, if things go well, you would be looking at about October-ish for Aiyuk to be back. And the option bonus that Greg speaks of is just under $23 million, 22.855, and the team owes him that on April 1st. So if an Aiyuk trade is going to happen, folks, it's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks because it doesn't make any sense for the 49ers to pick up that option and then trade him. So if they're going to move him, they're going to move him before April 1st. Another name that was brought up by our buddy Phil Perry, Jakobi Meyers, going into the last year of his deal. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would, I've heard that as well. Again, I think this is a situation again, and you're going to get this a lot where it's like, all right, the Patriots are trying. Remember how they've talked about plan A, B, C, and D. Where would Jakobi Meyers fit? Maybe plan C or something like that. But yeah, I do. You look at new regime in Vegas. We all know the fit in the McDaniels offense. It's perfect. He comes in automatically. He's ready to go. He upgrades the room. He's a professional, like all that stuff. I do think in this offense, like, Godwin is plan A at that position. Like I said, Meyers would be like plan C, but yeah, I think he's another one of these veteran guys that the Patriots have interest in and would upgrade the room.
It's something that's been consistently reported out there, and it's something that the Patriots talked about over the last couple of weeks is having contingency plans. And they're not going to, go with plan A if plan A doesn't work, not have a plan B, C, or D. And it feels like Elliott Wolf certainly regrets that part of the offseason. Something else that Mark Daniels wrote today was that the Patriots, they drafted for need versus best player available. And they do not want to do that this draft. They feel like they did that too much in the 2024 draft. And of course, if you're drafting on need, you might be reaching on certain guys. And so they do not want to do that again. Speaking of, you know what? I'll hold off for a minute. I actually want to stick with free agency here because Ronnie Stanley's been mentioned a lot.
Yep.
I think it's obvious. The Patriots.
Yes.
They're in the Ronnie Stanley business, folks. They want Ronnie Stanley. They are sending every single flare up into the sky that they can to let Stanley know that if you don't agree to a contract with Baltimore, we're going to back up the Brinks. Adam Schefter just said on McAfee's show that he does not anticipate another tag getting done, which isn't a surprise. We're like, within hours of the expiration of the deadline there. So it looks like unless a deal is done in the next 5 or 6 days, it looks like Ronnie Stanley could actually hit free agency. Does Elliott Wolf and Company, I should change that. Don't aggregate. Don't aggregate. Will
Seriously,
Mike
that's going to spark off some things. Like Vito's going to replay this on the show tomorrow and be like,
damn it. Will Mike Vrabel and Company allow Ronnie Stanley to leave the facility if he walks to the door?
Well, he's never going to get here because he's going to be a March 10th first day type of thing. No, I mean, I think they're going to make him. They're going to make him an overwhelming offer, probably more than the Ravens are offering. It's just, does Ronnie want to go someplace that he doesn't know, or does he want to stay, comfortable in Owings Mills, Maryland, where he knows everything and knows the coaches and knows the lay of the land, or is he going to grab the money? We'll have to see.
Wouldn't mind a little bit of selfishness from Ronnie. Ronnie, it's not bad to take the best deal.
Take the money, Ronnie.
Take the money and run, Ronnie. If not Ronnie Stanley, other names that have been reported out. I think it was Andrew Callahan and Doug Kyde saying that, look, if the Patriots don't land Stanley, they look at Cam Robinson, they look at Dan Moore, and they feel like they'll end up landing on somebody. Another name's been brought up in Jedrick Wills. Which out of those three guys, Greg, would you rather have if you were Vrabel, if Stanley's gone?
So you said Dan Moore from the Steelers, Cam Robinson from Minnesota,
and Jedrick
Wills. As we've talked about him before, yeah, I mean, Jedrick Wills is the most talented guys out of those three. Now, where is his attitude? If you pay him, is he going to work? This is all stuff you're hoping that Vrabel knows from being in the room with him in Cleveland. All things being equal, Wills is the most talented guy. I mean, he was drafted 10th overall for a reason, but at least in Cleveland, and look, a lot of things were going on in Cleveland. Not the ideal fit in the room, I think is what you would say. Man, I don't really like any of those guys. I'm not a big Dan Moore fan. He's all right. Cam Robinson, all right. Man, that's a tough one. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, you're just know this. You're getting a guy that you're replacing at some point down the line, because I don't think they're going to get a whole lot better than what they are now. I guess Dan Moore, I guess. I mean, he's all right. Would he be an upgrade over Vederian Lowe and those guys? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess that would be my choice.
Ronnie, take the money. Take the money, Ronnie. All right, we got more free agency thoughts here coming up in a minute. But first, Greg wants to tell you about Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks have made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You could double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Think Jason Tatum will get more than 5 3-pointers at some point this week. Jaylen Brown for more than 35 points. Cook up your hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right, we keep it moving here with free agency. Guard seems like something that's on the list for the Patriots, and obviously we're talking left guard. Even though there was a little blip today in Mark Daniels' piece at Mass Live that the Patriots could play Mike Onwenu at right tackle.
What?
Yeah, can I just say this? Okay, I just want to. This is I want to make sure I get the wording correctly, so I got to look it up. Give me 1 second. Here's what Daniels wrote about Mike Onwenu today. Last offseason, the Patriots re-signed Onwenu with the plan of playing him at right tackle. Instead, he moved to right guard. Internally, one source believes right guard is still Onwenu's best position. Another source noted that Onwenu could play right tackle since he did so in Josh McDaniels' system during 2020 and 2021. Odds are that the Patriots keep Mike Onwenu at right guard. Let me just say this. Can we pick a lane with Mike Onwenu for shit's sake? I mean, it's like fundamentally there are broken brains at the facility handling Mike Onwenu. Put him somewhere and leave him there. Greg and I have been saying this since 2020. Put him in a spot and leave him in the spot. I would be so happy if I could just go through an offseason and not read about Mike Onwenu possibly sliding to right tackle. So can I get through one offseason without somebody writing that we don't know where Onwenu is going to play? Can we just pick the position and let the young man work at that position? It's driving me nuts. With that said, offensive guard seems to be on the list. Interestingly enough, Greg, your buddy Mike Giardi at BSJ, he reported the last couple of days that one of the names the Patriots would be in on is Tevin Jenkins. Now, what's interesting about this is Jenkins was in Chicago. Chicago just traded for Jonah Jackson from LA. You would imagine Jonah Jackson is replacing Jenkins. So maybe Jenkins is a Patriot within the next week. But I want to ask you not only about Jenkins, if you know anything about him, but I also just want to ask you about guard being on the list. Like, how high of a priority do you have it, Greg, if you're looking at needs?
Decently. I mean, because I just want to upgrade the line, and I'll figure things out, later. Like what you're doing with Cole Strange, Layden Robinson. He probably needs to sit for a year. I think City So is pretty much gone at some point down the line. Took a huge step back last year. I think they want to upgrade. They want like starting caliber players. I mean, I think Jenkins is decent. I mean, I would say the guard market, and just remember, and this just goes to all the people last year who stomped their feet about the Patriots not paying for X, Y, and Z. Jonah Jackson, who just got traded for the Rams, was one of the top guards available last year in free agency. The Rams just paid $25 million for 1 year. Of Jonah Jackson before trading him for 5 cents on the dollar. I think there, Will Hernandez from the Cardinals, Will Fries from the Colts, Jenkins from the Bears. You have Becton. He played right guard last year. Kappa, who just got released, is okay. Makari from Baltimore. He could play a bunch of different roles. He's decent. Radins from Tennessee is a guy that Vrabel and Cowden know very well. There was one other name that I had, but I don't see it at this time. But, all those guys are options to come in at guard for the Patriots.
The more I think about it, the more I love the Makari idea. Now, I think if Stanley chooses the Patriots offer, if he gets the free agency, I think the Ravens will bring Makari back. They'll give him the money and say, "No, you're staying here." But if Stanley stays with Baltimore, Makari is a very fascinating option because, as you said, he's played all 5 positions on the offensive line for the Ravens. So, I mean, if there's a situation where, you just get him, you sign him and you say to yourself, he's going to play somewhere. Let's get him done. And then we'll see what else we can get done via free agency in the draft. And we know that this guy's capable of playing most of these spots. You don't want him at left tackle, don't get me wrong. But he can play, the other spots. So Makari to me is a very, very interesting option. All right, let's talk defense. Some reporting, Greg, that the Patriots are not very interested in Josh Sweat. Are you surprised by that?
A little bit. Again, I think the key thing about these Patriots, whether it's trade compensation or contract, they want to invest. The guys they're going to invest in heavily. They want younger and they want here for multiple years. Like Josh Sweat, I think I want to say 31. I think so. And I don't know how much of an every down player he is. I think. Would the Patriots rather do like a Harold Landry type of thing? I think, that's a possibility. But, I'm not a little bit. I mean, I do think that they would have a little bit of interest, but not, Super Bowl, top of the market, cashing in on the postseason run type of guy.
Yeah, Sweat will be 28 on March 29th. And one of the things that Phil Perry has talked a lot about, and he wrote about this recently, is teams are a little concerned, maybe even a lot concerned about Sweat's injury. Now, this is an injury that happened in high school, but at the time, the injury was so severe that doctors told Sweat he might have to have his leg amputated. So he's an unbelievable story because he went from that to being, as good as he's been with Philly. But, as Phil has talked about, they drafted him in the 4th round, so it was low risk, high reward. They got a second contract done with him, which wasn't a big contract. So again, it was low risk, high reward. And so now teams are looking around and saying, is Josh Sweat's luck going to run out? I think that's the question that a lot of teams are asking has he been on borrowed time with that injury, and that clock is ticking. And if we give him $20 million a year, is that unfortunately going to pop up again? And now we're spending a ton of money on somebody who might have a career-ending injury. So I think that's the biggest question. His teammate, Sweat's teammate in Philly, Greg, as much Ronnie Stanley talk on the offensive side is as much Milton Williams talk as I have seen from pretty much everybody. What are you hearing? Are you in on Milton?
Yeah, I'm hearing the Patriots are big time in on Milton, and I am big time in on Milton. He is a game wrecker, game changer on the inside. For all you want to say about, and Jalen Carter is great, and Jordan Davis is, a good role player. But, Milton Williams, you could argue, was the best defender on the Eagles defensive line during their, postseason run. And so, those are the type of guys that Vrabel is looking for. He's sort of like in that Jeffrey Simmons role. So yeah, I think they are on board on that.
Another position the Patriots are reportedly looking at, cornerback. There's been some connection with the Patriots and DJ Reed. I know you and I talked about him a little bit last time. Another name that's popped up is Byron Murphy from the Vikings. How big of a priority is it for the Patriots to look at cornerback? And are you okay with the names that you've seen so far?
Yeah, I like both those guys. I think, a good C option would be Nate Hobbs from the Raiders, who Josh knows well, who, when I was watching a bunch of Raiders film when McDaniels was there, I love Nate Hobbs. Dude is a total baller, tough guy on the outside, really good cover, underrated. I would upgrade cornerback. I mean, I think the Patriots wouldn't be opposed to having Jonathan Jones back, but I think we're past the days of relying on him. And plus he has versatility. You could move him to free safety, that sort of thing. But yeah, they're going to have to fit all these puzzle pieces as far as who gets the, biggest part of the pie. But yeah, I like those names, and I like upgrading cornerback.
All right, one last one before we get to draft talk. Mike Vrabel brought up how important the nickel is in today's football. And this kind of goes in line with the cornerback conversation, right? Obviously, Marcus Jones is a smaller dude, right? What do you think the Patriots do at nickel? Is it as easy as, maybe some of these guys they're looking at on the outside, they feel like they might be able to slide into nickel as well? What do you think about what are your thoughts about the nickel position, number one, in the NFL now, and how important it is? And number two, how do you think the Patriots approach that position?
I do think the nickelback is huge in the NFL. I mean, basically nobody plays base anymore, and it's all nickel and dime. So, you need somebody like that. I do think a Nate Hobbs, Mike Hilton, those guys are some of the top nickels that are available in free agency. I do think like a Carlton Davis has some out of Detroit, has some of that, Tavarius Ward. So yeah, I mean, I do think, I think we're looking at a situation where, again, the Patriots want to fill out the depth chart, so that they can leave themselves open. I mean, could they end up getting a nickel in the draft at some point? Yeah, but they're not gonna bank on that. And so I do think it's a priority for them.
All right, gonna get to the draft, but first, Greg's gonna get to know Turno.
Yes, I am. As soon as I find, as someone who's spent years covering football, I know what it takes to be a winning team. It's about reliability, precision, and showing up when it matters most. When it came to my own home and my heating system, I needed a team I could count on, and Naterno Home Services delivered. Naterno is local. They are family-owned and family-focused and have been servicing the greater Boston area for 15 years. From start to finish, they made the process of upgrading my heating system seamless and stress-free, and they go above and beyond. For example, hooking me up with a free valve. When mine broke 4 days before we were supposed to get it, it's freezing upstairs, 53 degrees, where the kids sleep and everything, and they replaced that for free because that's the type of company they are. They weren't going to leave me in a lurch, and they won't do that for you either. Naterno isn't just about heating. They're my go-to for plumbing, cooling, and even water and air quality solutions. They've got the expertise to handle whatever your home needs. Here's the best part. You can get 10% off your next service with Naterno. That could save you up to $1,000 on your next project. Just visit naternohome.com/Bedard for all details and conditions. That's NOTTURNO home.com/Bedard to take advantage now. These deals won't last forever. If you're looking for a team that puts your comfort first, visit naternohome.com/Bedard. I trust Naterno. You should too.
By the way, just to update something here, Schefter on the Pat McAfee show said the 49ers are willing to listen to trades for just about anyone with their current cap situation. So, again, for people wondering, why would they trade Aiyuk if they just paid him? There you go. It's, as I talked about earlier, financially, it looks like the owner has said enough is enough. I paid a shit ton of money the last few years. I don't have a Super Bowl to show for it. So we're cutting some of this. And so, obviously, that tells us Brandon Aiyuk's available. And it's just whether or not the Patriots want to work a deal out. Because we know the Patriots were interested last year, as Greg said. And you could imagine that if, the Patriots are comfortable with the draft asset that they'd be asking for, and maybe taking some of the money, as Greg mentioned, then they'll make that deal. And what else is interesting, Greg, is, with Aiyuk available, this might put some pressure on some other receivers to make decisions. And especially like for the Patriots, like if the Patriots are, let's say they're back channeling with T. Higgins, even though Higgins was franchised, if they're back channeling with Higgins, now they could try to get Higgins camp to push on Cincy. If Higgins is interested in coming to New England, we don't know. But now you could try to push T's team to push Cincinnati to try to come up with a solution, because you're going to say, hey, look, at a certain point, we're going to move on. Like, we're going to pivot, and we got Brandon Aiyuk on the table right now. Here's my question for you, just before we get to the draft. What would you be willing to give up for Brandon Aiyuk?
I mean, depending on how much the money, if any, the 49ers eat. I mean, if they eat that first year of the deal, like that roster bonus that's due, could be a third. I would also, revive sort of a player thing. Kendrick Bourne. Are there any other players like Devon Godchow could be a fit for them? Because who is it? I think Javon Hargrave, they might be out on with their team.
Yep.
That I could see that being sort of a swap. So if the 49ers are eating money because of that first year, the ACL recovery and all that stuff, could be a third or fourth and a player, fourth and a couple players. But yeah, I mean, I would rather not give up a top 100 pick, but I would think about it.
I would think about it to give up a top 100 pick. You got 2/3, of course, because the Judon trade. So my question would be, is San Francisco willing to deal a pick back? We see that all the time, right? Okay, I'll give you a third if you give us Aiyuk in a fifth or Aiyuk in a fourth. I'll give you the third. And, of course, money would also, as you mentioned, Greg, be a part of this. If you're willing to eat a chunk of it, now you're really talking, because the Aiyuk deal kicks in this year. So what you're looking at is 3 years and about $76 million, right? So if you get San Francisco to eat a chunk of that money, and you have Aiyuk under contract for the next 3 years, and you're going to pay him, $50 million over 3 years, I mean, that's just over, $16 million a year for a guy who could be a number one. Of course, the big question is the injury, but that's why you're getting him at the cost that you're getting him at. If he wasn't injured, then you're having to give up at least a second round pick. So, I think it's a very interesting option for the Patriots, especially given what they did last offseason and how they really, really wanted Aiyuk. I can't imagine they woke up today and said, you know what, we're out of the Aiyuk business. I think it depends on the parameters. Meanwhile, don't forget to check out BSJ, $50 for the year, Bedard and Giardi tag teaming Patriots coverage. You also want to download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS, get $50 instantly when you play $5. All right, let's get to the draft. The biggest thing, we got to talk arm length again. Gosh damn it. So again, I know people are going to sit there and go, you're defending Greg. I have no skin in the game to defend Greg's reporting. But Greg said on last week's podcast that Will Campbell's arm measurement measured in at 32 7/8 inches. Now, I do want to say, and of course, I don't remember who wrote it, but within the last couple of days, somebody at ESPN wrote a story. And guess what? They said they heard from multiple sources the same exact thing that Greg heard. So
they did?
Yes. So I forget who it was, but I read it and I said, okay, Bedard's not the only one that got that information. There's also something weird that's in the ether. That if you look at the arm measurements of all the offensive linemen at the combine and you measure them up to, bowl games or whatever and Senior Bowl, that pretty much every offensive lineman somehow lost, I think it was like a half an inch off their arm length. So
and some guys, their height too, they were losing.
So all of a sudden, from bowl season and Senior Bowl to the combine, every offensive lineman shrunk. Which is, we have to have a fascinating scientific journey with that. First, how the hell does that happen? Let me just ask you that. Well, let's start there. How is that possible that every offensive lineman lost a half an inch of arm length?
Yeah, and the thing is, at their pro day, they might gain it back. Like we're gonna have to see. I mean, basically, it's an inexact science. I mean, I don't know if they use like a tape measure and it's like from the spine and just to clarify, and I think we said this. So, like, I reached out to an AFC scout, and do you guys have an arm measurement? So this was the National Football Scouting, NFS. That's the same group that runs the combine. Went to LSU's went to spring football April 2nd, 2024. He had a date, and they measured him 32 7/8, and then he was 32 5/8 at the combine. I mean, it's just inactive. He's going to get measured they'll pick out a NFL scout to do it for LSU's pro day as well. And so who knows, but not good for Will Campbell, the measurement. And the bigger thing is his wingspan. So you can even see this when you look at him, like, and I don't have broad shoulders, so I'm in the Will Campbell sort of camp. Like, I have smaller shoulders. Like he has really small shoulders.
Yes.
And, so his wingspan is like well below a lot of these guys.
I mean, I hate to laugh, but now every time I talk about this, I think of Greg doing the T-Rex arms last podcast.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But yes, it's true. Trevor Sikma of Pro Football Focus tweeted this. Will Campbell's 32 5/8 inch arms rank in just the 7th percentile for tackles. His 77 3/8 inch wingspan would be the shortest wingspan of any tackle since at least 2011. So yes, when we say the man's wingspan is a problem, we're telling you the man's wingspan is a problem. Given the measurements, Greg, are you now out on Will Campbell at 4?
I am out on Will Campbell at 4. I am not taking, and I do think he's going to be, let me just say this. I think he's going to be a really good football player. He probably deserves to go at least in the top 20, if not top 15. I think he's going to be an excellent guard in this league for a very long time. But I am not taking a guard at 4 unless I know they're going to be a Hall of Famer, unless I know he's the second coming of John Hanna, and Will Campbell just isn't that. So I am out on Will Campbell at number 4.
I agree with you. I said this on my podcast yesterday, which, by the way, has been rebranded Everything Pats. And somebody busted my ball saying, "Oh, drink every time Nick brings up his own podcasts with Greg." Okay. So maybe that would be like, maybe 3 shots a show. Maybe. That's my first one today. It'll be my last. But I did mention, the way I put it is, if you draft Will Campbell at 4, you've got to believe he's a unicorn. You have to believe that he is like so special at either guard, or he's special enough to play tackle with that wingspan and play it well enough to justify drafting him 4th. You have to believe he's a unicorn. And look, if the Patriots front office and offensive line coaching staff, and if they believe he's a unicorn and they take a swing, they better be right. Because if he ends up being a very good guard and you got him at the 4th pick, that's not good. So I am leaning away from drafting Will Campbell at 4.
What's going on, everyone? Taylor Cowles here for CLNS Media with a very exciting announcement. Here at Patriots Press Pass, we will be introducing bonus tiers. Now, this will not affect any of the content that hopefully you've grown to know and love over here at Patriots Press Pass. It's all going to be some brand new stuff and extras so we can connect with you more and also provide you some more in-depth and high-quality content. Hopefully, you guys are going to like it. Here are the tiers and what you should be expecting from all these new bonuses. At Tier 1, we've got Rookie Starter. That'll come with ad-free content, early access to videos, 5% off of all merchandise, and even custom emojis. At Tier 2, we've got All Pro. Once again, ad-free content, early access, 10% off merchandise, custom emojis, but that'll also come with player profile film reviews and draft profiles. At Tier 3, we've got GOAT status. Same as all the other tiers, but it's going to be 20% off of all merchandise, and we're also going to have custom segments, Discord chat rooms with myself and other show hosts, as well as live film reviews with myself and whomever we've got on the podcast for that day, hoping to have some pretty fun guests.
Which brings us to Dane Brugler, who does great work at The Athletic, his latest mock draft. One guy, Greg, that does have longer than 33-inch arms. And absolutely, I want to say this too, Will Campbell was great athletically. I know there'll be some pushback at us and saying, oh, he's tremendous. I mean, he smoked the athletic testing, and reportedly he was fantastic in the interview room. So literally, if Will Campbell had 34-inch arms, the guy would be a top 3 pick in this draft. Like, nobody would be complaining about it. But Armand Membou, also athletically tested off the charts. He's longer than Will Campbell is. He played right tackle, I believe, Greg, at Missouri.
Yep.
But we're starting to see the Armand Membou conversation of him going in the top 10 and maybe leapfrogging Will Campbell. Your thoughts on that prospect?
Armand Membou hive. So this is, I might have forgotten his name, but this is the player I brought up after the Senior Bowl, Nick. He is the player in question that, and I remember, I think Dane Brugler put this. He put, and had to pull out of the Senior Bowl because of an illness.
Yes.
Listeners will remember that, no, it was not an illness. What happened is that Armand Membou was going through, had committed for months, was going through the process. I think had gone through some interviews, and then suddenly Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network dropped his top 50 prospects, and Membou, I think, was number 11 on his list. Suddenly, the Senior Bowl people could not reach Armand Membou. Suddenly, he went like missing. But he ghosted them because I think we can all see what was going on here. His agents were like, "Dude, you don't need to do anything. Just leave. We're leaving. Yeah. Oh, I'm sick. I have a stomach bug." So look, remember, this kid is just still 20. So there's a lot to work through in terms of his professionalism, maturity, and stuff like that. And what's interesting is like all his arm measurements, wingspan, all that is way better than Will Campbell, and he's about 2.5 inches shorter. He's 6'125". I think 4's a little rich for Membou. I do think he's a right tackle as of right now. And as you know, of course, in April, we'll dig into this stuff more. We're more focused on free agency right now. I don't totally rule him out at 4. I think that's a little rich, but when you're talking about right tackle, guard, he's a really good prospect, and he's going to be up there. I think he's going to go ahead of Will Campbell. I also think Kelvin Banks from Texas had some great workout drills, tested through the roof, and again and he measured in taller. A lot of people thought he was going to be 6'3". Turns out he was 6'5" at the combine. So a guy he did not lose height or wingspan at the combine, so it's a miracle. But I do think some guys are going to pass Will Campbell a little bit, and I think those are the two guys to do it.
I'm 5'8". I needed them Kelvin Banks supplements, baby.
Seriously.
Get me to 5'10", 5'11". I'll take it. All right, so we got two more things I want to talk about quickly. It just came out that Saquon Barkley has agreed to a contract extension. 2 years, $41.2 million. I bring that up not because we're an Eagles podcast, but because there are 3 names. 2 of them we've already mentioned. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, free agents, right? Every time a team signs a big contract extension, and you got to wonder how much money is being allotted to this guy, to other guys, how much does it take away? And I know our buddy Tommy Curran on EEI said that and this is paraphrasing, but he finds it more reasonable that the Patriots would trade for A.J. Brown than DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
Any chance? Like, A.J. Brown's kind of been on the peripheral because, of course, they just won a Super Bowl and stuff. Is A.J. Brown even worth talking about, Greg, right now in this offseason?
Sure. I mean, I don't think the Eagles are eager to deal him, but yeah, I think until we know they're staying, then guys like Metcalf and A.J. Brown are certainly worthy of the conversation.
All right, last one. Your guy, Ric Serritella at BSJ, does your draft work. He had some write-ups on players that kind of stood out to you. So run through some of the guys that caught your eye.
So, I just wanted to talk. I used his write-ups as a jumping off point, but guys that we should talk about. Mason Graham, another guy who measured in really light. I mean, he was like 295 pounds, like in short arms.
Milton Williams is 291. So that
now,
I believe so. I believe Milton Williams is listed as 291. I'll look. Let me see. Milton Williams size, weight. He's listed at 6'3", 291 when I do the old Google search. He's listed at 6'3", 290 on his Pro Football Reference. ESPN lists him at 6'3", 290. So I don't know how much to put in the weight. Like, how much do you put on weight when you talk about, because we know that Vrabel's different. He likes, the interior defensive lineman who might be a little bit lighter, not the quote unquote 2-gapping guy. So how much does that kind of play a role?
A little bit, but it depends on like what all the other, measurables are. And let's point out that Mason Graham, the only thing he did was the bench press. And I don't know off the top of my head how many he did, and we're talking about the 4th overall pick in the draft. Milton Williams went in the 3rd round, near the top of the 3rd round in, I think, 2021 out of Louisiana Tech. And he tested off the charts. And remember, Mason Graham, I also think, is like 6'2" and change. Milton Williams, he was coming out of Louisiana Tech. He was 6'3", 284. Hands were big enough. He had short arms too. 31 and a half. I think Mason Graham is like 32. But like knocked it out of the park on his testing. 34 on the bench press. Vertical jump of 38 and a half, broad jump of 10 feet, 20-yard shuttle, 4.3, 3-cone of 6.96. Like, that's insane. Like, so I'll be interested.
Crazy athlete is pretty much the answer, right? So it's 291, but with kind of crazy traits.
Exactly. Like that's what, and now we need to see when Mason Graham goes through his testing at his pro day, like, can he match that? And remember, we're also talking about the 4th overall pick in the draft. I don't know. I would have a tough time drafting I mean, unless you're Aaron Donald, like 4th overall for Mason Graham. I don't know.
Yeah. Mason Graham was 6'3". And I would guess, would you say 6'3" and 4/8", I guess, which is the 59th percentile for defensive tackles. He weighed in at 296, which is in the 26th percentile. And his arm length was 32 inches, which is in the 12th percentile. So all 3 of those, not great for Graham. And, I know the pushback is watch the film. Nobody's doubting that he's a good football player and that he was really good at Michigan. Okay. But you're going up a level. And so when you go up a level, you go against bigger guys, faster guys, better guys. And it's somewhat similar to the Will Campbell conversation, somewhat. If you believe that Mason Graham is that unicorn and he measures the way he measured, and let's say athletically he doesn't necessarily pop, Will Campbell did, but let's say Mason Graham is not popping off the screen when it comes to his athletic testing, you've got to say there is something that makes this dude inherently different than pretty much everybody else who's played the game of football. And if you believe that he's that guy, then you entertain picking him at 4. If you don't believe that, then it's really difficult to sell the idea of drafting him 4th overall. Anybody else from the files here?
So, yeah, a couple of things that jumped out. James Pierce, Tennessee, edge, 6'5", 245. I mean, this dude is a freak. Talent-wise, he's a top 10 pick. There are a lot of red flags on him. I mean, It'll be interesting to see where he goes. Matthew Golden, the Texas receiver, was awesome. He could be we've heard a lot about, whether it's Travis Hunter or the Tet kid from Arizona. You probably know how to pronounce his name. Golden could end up, I mean, Hunter's going to go earlier because of his two-way ability, but Golden could be the first just plain wide receiver that goes in the draft over everybody because he's that good. Nick Amorori from South Carolina, the safety, complete freak. Yeah.
Yeah.
Complete freak. Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M. We told you about him at the Senior Bowl. Knocked the workout out of the park. One guy I wrote down watching the DTs, and it's interesting that Rick agreed and put him at a Patriots target. So I'll publish this either today or tomorrow. Rick did a column sort of on, guys at each position who stood out, but also a Patriots sort of target guy. JJ Pegues, out of Ole Miss, DT. I kept writing his name down on the DT drills. He really stood out. And Jihad Campbell, the Alabama linebacker, 6'3", 235, tested out the charts. Like great workout, total beast. Those are all guys that I would like to see as a Patriot, but we'll see what happens.
I just can't remember his name, and it's driving me crazy, but there was one dude, defensive lineman, something like Effidajo or something like that. I'm trying to remember how to pronounce it. It's a really difficult name. I don't know if it's UCLA or whatever, but that dude also was kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about because he was at the Senior Bowl, and really, he was one of these guys that how you might be walking by. Most people are like, they walk by and they see a good looking girl and they look, they're like, oh, that's a good looking girl. Like of course I do the same thing with football players, and at the Senior Bowl I was like, damn, that guy is a good looking football player in terms of how he's built. He looks like he came out of a lab in terms of a football player. And apparently his character off the field is off the charts. He reminds me a lot of, he's a better build, better production, better player, better prospect than Dietrich Wise, but same sort of guy. But I know who you're talking about, and he's great.
Yeah, if it's him, I think it's Femi Oladejo. I think that's who it is. One last thing. I promise it's the last thing. We're going a little bit long, but I think it's worth it because there's so much to talk about. I had to ask you about Shedeur Sanders because there's some stuff out there today, Greg, And this impacts the Patriots because if Sanders is drafted in the top 3, of course, you'll get one of Hunter or Carter. If he slides down precipitously, then not so much. Todd McShay said that he spoke with a couple of front office people that are in the top 10 of this draft and need a quarterback. And both of them told McShay that Sanders, during the interview process, did not come across as serious, did not come across as professional. And so there's some thought out there, Greg, and I wanted to get your thoughts on if you agree with this or not. Is Sanders purposely tanking some of these interviews because we know his dad has come out and said he's not going to play somewhere where I don't want him to play or whatever? I'm paraphrasing. Yeah. Is it possible that Shedeur is tanking his own value here? And if so, what do you think about that?
I think so. And by the way, I want to say from what I've heard from talking to people, Cam Ward is definitely going in the top 3 if he's not the first pick in the draft, from what I hear. As far as, because we're talking about Patriots and who might fall to them.
Right.
Shedeur, I don't know. I mean, I know there are some people out there who said that I think Field Yates said that he thinks that 2 quarterbacks will go in the top 3. I don't know about that. It's maybe. I mean, look, it only takes one team to get one QB desperate team like the Raiders or the Giants or, what have you, to do that. I do think that Shedeur is probably in cues from his dad. There's certain teams in the top 10 that he doesn't want to play for. So he just goes in there with, sort of a bad attitude about it. But I also wanted to say this because I see this, and this is predictable. And I get a lot of this stuff, because I dare to give people the truth and, what people are saying, when I write about these are the red flags on the guys that the Patriots drafted, which pretty much all came true and every year come true, but nobody wants to hear it. And they want to say stuff like, I'm purposely crapping on, these players for X, Y, Z, and it's predictable that they're doing, saying this stuff. And I saw this stuff about Shedeur, all these people that are saying this stuff that are in these rooms for NFL teams, they've been in the league for a lot of years. They know what they're doing. And what if it's just true that Shedeur is coming off as unprofessional? What? That would shock someone? I mean, so I don't know. Of course there's this, and then there's the pushback. It just drives me crazy. Not as much as the Robin Glazer stuff, but pretty close.
I saw that was being talked about yesterday. I don't get it. So Brett Coleman tweets about the Saquon contract and says, reminder that Jeffrey Lurie has hundreds upon hundreds of millions of liquid capital right now to make the majority of Saquon's deal guaranteed, and how he can manipulate the cap however he wants with void year shenanigans. This literally will not hurt them at all. So Brett Coleman is saying that he doesn't believe that the Saquon Barkley contract will impact any other business that Philly does. We'll see. We'll see if that's true or not. All right, we got to get out of here. We had a lot to cover. Hopefully you enjoyed this. We'll be back later in the week, which I'm sure will bring even more rumors. Until then, be well.